Welcome to today's GNA. Today we'll try to discuss 5 topics. First 4 are related to the prelims and fifth one is related to the mains. Now first topic says Adaptation Gap Report 2025. Second topic is Transit Oriented Development. Third is on India's Maritime Week 2025. Fourth article is on cloud seeding, right? Fifth article will try to discuss about the Constitutional 138th Amendment Bill 2025 and its implication for the future of India. That's all. Thank you. So first news is on Adaptation Gap Report 2025. So basically it is the United Nations Environmental Program UNEP which releases this report, right? So United Nations Environmental Program is a dedicated body for looking after all these things, and it is saying that we are running on empty, and it further says that the world is gearing up for climate resilience without money to get there. तो कहने का पूरा मतलब ये है कि यू माइट बी सीइंग दिस मीम, राइट? आर्थिक स्थिति ठीक नहीं है यूएनईपी की. दैट इज द बेसिकली द समरी ऑफ द रिपोर्ट. इफ आई हैव टू summarize it in one line, it is the summary, right? So it is related to the GS paper 3, obviously science, technology, environment development topic that is overlapping, and this is the basically core theme of the environmental report. These reports are asked in the UPSC, either which institution releases this report or what is the role or contribution of India in such kind of report. That's why we are discussing it, right? So now let us try to ponder more upon what is the backgrounder of the entire news. So what is it? So Adaptation Gap Report is an annual publication, means हर एक साल release होता है, right? By the United Nations Environmental Program, we have discussed it already. What is the purpose of it? क्यों निकालते हैं ये? So it accesses the gap between the climate change, adaptation needs and implementation action. मतलब जो हमें करना है और जो हमें अचीव हो चुका है उसमें गैप कितना है. लेट अस सपोज वी आर टारगेटिंग फॉर द 100 and if you are able to achieve 80, so there will be a gap of 20. This is the gap measured by this report. That's why the name of the report is Adaptation Gap Report. Adaptation में जो गैप हो रहा है उसके बारे में रिपोर्ट है ये, राइट? So this is the entire basically background, right? Now what is the executive summary? क्या इसका की आउटकम? लेट अस ट्राई टू पॉन्डर अपॉन मच अपॉन दिस थिंग. तो फर्स्ट इट सेज द ग्लोबल एडॉप्टेशन नीड्स, वी नीड टू बेसिकली रीइंफोर्स इट. एज पर दिस रिपोर्ट वी आर लैकिंग बिहाइंड 12 to 14 टाइम्स. जितनी ज़रूरत है उससे 12 to 14 टाइम्स लेसर वी आर बेसिकली इन्वेस्टिंग इनटू द climate resilience infrastructure or adaptation, right? For example, if you have to invest basically 1200 rupees in the climate adaptation, we are only investing what? 100 rupees, right? That is the basically theme. That also says that developing countries require $310 to 365 billion per year by 2035, right? To adequately adapt to the climate impacts, which is 12 to 14 times the current international public adaptation. ठीक है ना? अभी कम है काफ़ी हमारा. Now there is a gap as well, क्योंकि ये गैप ही है, right? Which is widening. गैप धीरे धीरे करके बढ़ रही है. नेचुरली क्या होना चाहिए था कि गैप धीरे धीरे करके नैरो डाउन होना चाहिए था. गैप शुड बी लाइक दिस ओनली, राइट? विच ग्रेजुअल टाइम, बट विच ग्रेजुअल टाइम इट इज इंक्रीजिंग. ऑल्सो कैन यू कनेक्ट इट विद द withdrawal of the United States from the Paris climate deal, right? After this, Trump came into the power, right? So this is also impacting such kind of the adaptation, right, in India or otherwise. Now progress in planning, around 172 out of 190 countries have national adaptation plan, including India obviously. However, a few countries have outdated plans. 36 countries are not updating their plans, which is also a matter of the concerns for, as per this report. Also there is a basically implementation evidences which increased adaptation project finance under UNFCCC funds totaling nearly 920 million in 2024, but financial constraint likely to rise past 2025. इन्होंने कहा कि पैसा अगेन आर्थिक स्थिति इनकी खराब होने वाली, ये इनका पूरा मैटर ऑफ डिस्कशन है. अगेन they have appreciated role of the private sector in the climate investment, but they are saying the role of the private sector should be increased and we should be better utilizing the private sector. That is again next thing. And it also have the issue of the challenges, which simply means high reliance on the debt instrument for funding constraint risk vulnerable country including India, right? So हमारा जो बहुत ज़्यादा reliance हो गया ऐसी चीज़ों पे वो कहीं ना कहीं vulnerable है, we are vulnerable to it. Also it says that from Baku to BAM roadmap which was endorsed at COP29, aimed at mobilizing US dollar 1.3 trillion per year by 2035 for climate finance to developing countries, right? Promoting grants and concessional finance, avoiding maladaptation and enhancing financial integration of climate resilience, which is not functioning well as per this report, which is also a matter of the concern for us, right? Now, what are the key data related to India? We will have to discuss. If there is any international report, we will have to understand where India lies in such kind of report and what we can do, and accordingly you can use such kind of the data and the codes from these report in your answers, which will enhance your answer. Otherwise, you should be knowing, right? So, what the report says about the India? It says India, which is a major developing country exposed to climate risk. Obviously, we have recently seen the Uttarakhand flood disaster or Himachal flood disaster. We have seen it, or heat waves. Every year we will see we are having the orange alert, another type of the alert. So, we are living on the extreme, be it the cold or the rain or the heat. We are living in the extreme, and hence we are quite vulnerable. And people like women's, elderly people, children are more vulnerable, and poor are more vulnerable to the climate change. That is why India is also on the risk of the climate change, right? And India's national adaptation strategy are aligned with the key sector, including agriculture, water, biodiversity, infrastructure and human settlement, which is good, right? It is appreciating that we are aligned with the most of the things, right? And reports underscores that importance for India to update its adaptation plan as timely revision. They are saying कि हमें भी अपना adaptation plan को revise करना पड़ेगा. We are bit outdated. Again, India is part of 59% countries reporting adaptation integration in non-climate development plans, which is also a good factor, right? And adaptation finance flow to India are part of the wider trend where climate investment face challenges with MBD, that is the multilateral development, for example, Asian Development Bank, or for example World Bank, or for example Asian other banks, right? These are known the development bank, right? So, वहाँ पे हमें they are paying, but again this is a matter of the concern, right? And it says that India has to leverage both international public finance and scale domestic public and private finance. They are saying we do not only have to rely upon the international financing, but we will to cater our government resources as well as the private resources for the climate resilience, right? तो ये सब बातें हैं अच्छी we will have to discuss. Now let us try to understand the keywords which is there in this report. So first is the adaptation. What is the meaning of the adaptation? We are seeing adaptation gap report. So what is the meaning of the adaptation in terms of environment? It means actions and strategies that individual, communities or countries, कहीं पे भी हो सकता है, individual कर सकता है, society कर सकती है और country कर सकती है, take to adjust the current or expected climate impact, to reduce harm or to take advantage of changes, right? ये इसका definition हो गया. Now what is the adaptation finance gap? Finance gap, again we need 1200 rupees, and if you are able to spend only 100 rupees, so there is a gap of 200 rupees. इसी को क्या बोलेंगे? Adaptation gap. So what is the definition? The difference between the funding needed for adaptation action and the actual fund available. Simple terms. Now what is Baku to BAM, right? So it is a global plan agreed at COP29 to increase climate finance to developing countries to help them to reduce emission and adapt to the climate impacts, targeting US billion $1.3 trillion by 2023. बहुत important है. It can be asked in the prelims, and you can quote this in your mains answers as well, right? And what is meaning the maladaptation? Maladaptation means action intended to adapt to climate change, but which actually increases vulnerability or risk. This is the meaning of the maladaptation. What is the concessional finance, right? Means loans at the concessional rate. What is the meaning of the biennial transparency report or BTR? It means reports countries submit under the Paris Agreement to show progress on climate adaptation and integration efforts, right? What is the meaning of the NAPA, National Adaptation Plan? Also India also have the National Adaptation Plan, right? So country plan to identify medium and long term adaptation needs and strategy. This is known as the NAPs. Hope the keywords related to this report are clear to you. Now what are the missed opportunity and strategic implication? So yes, there is obviously funding gap. We have seen 12 to 14 times lesser we are spending, we need to spend more. Then we need to update the plan. We have seen multiple countries are not updating their plans on regular basis, right? We need to update the plan. Then we need to cater the private sector, because private sector is untapped, their potential is untapped, including India. That's why if you are incorporating the private sector in this basically adaptation strategy, it will result into the better results, right? Now there is a debt concerns. For example, non-concessional debts are available, which is basically not beneficial for the countries. That's why they are not willing to invest more in such kind of the funds. These are the concerns, right? And there's inadequate reporting as well. We have seen at least 36 countries are not able to report to the updated plan. So we need to work on that. Then there's a gender and social inclusion. We'll have to include genders and social different society. And there's a role of the global diplomatic forum. For example, countries like US, we need to basically cater them, and they also need to understand this climate change is real, right? These are the basically key aspect of the report. Now let us try to understand. We have studied one word, that is one organization, that is the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. What is it, right? So basically UNEP was established in 1972 under United Nations Conference on Climate Change, right, where it was conducted at Stockholm. What is it? So it's a leading global environment authority within the United system. So ये UN का ही part है, इसलिए नाम क्या है, United Nations Environmental Program. What is the mandate of UNP? To provide leadership, deliver scientific assessment, develop policy solution and wider range of environmental impact. Report इनके क्या होते हैं? Sustainable Development Report, SDGs, right, which we often quote in our mains answer. इनका ये monitoring करती है. And what is the headquarters of this UNPT? It is Nairobi, and it is situated in Kenya, right? So it is very important, so you should be knowing. What are the major reports published by the UNPP? So first is the Global Environmental Outlook, second is the Emission Gap Report, third is the Global Biodiversity Outlook, and fourth is the Adaptation Gap Report. So we were discussing Adaptation Gap Report 2025. Hope the topic is clear to you, and role of the UNPP and the various reports released by UNPP also clear to you, right? Now based on the information, let us try to solve this question. Next news is on transit oriented development, or that we call TOD. So what happened? East Delhi is basically developing India's first major transit oriented development. Now, what is the meaning of this word TOD? So which aims to reshape urban growth around public transport nodes through high density, mixed use and walkable community, right? It also demonstrates a key urban planning strategy to curb vehicle dependence, reduce pollution and create sustainable cities, but face concern regarding the inclusive housing and actual public transport update. Now it is very complexly written, let us try to solve it. You might be basically living in an area in which there is a basically availability of the metros, or in which you are easily able to go by the public transportation, right, because it's more convenient for us. And you will see even if you are coming to our coaching, you will see there are pedestrian, very designated place for the pedestrian, right, in order to make their basically commutation very smooth. What happens if you have the infrastructure which is designed for such kind of things? You will see that area will develop more. For example, with the basically advent of the metros, you will see the property rates of that area is supposed to increase, or you will see there are multiple infrastructure, e-rickshaw will be available in that area, right, or there will be shops, right, local vending shops available in that area, which result into the better environment. Also, if you are using mass rapid transport system or mass transport system, what happens? Delhi, which is basically infamous during the winters for its pollution, and because it's there are a lot of vehicular load in Delhi, right, so it can be basically reduced if you are using a transit oriented development. Means the communication should be very smooth, right. If the communication is smooth, if it is hassle free, it is headache free, then people will basically like to basically commute using the public transportation. That is the case with the cities like Singapore or the major capital cities, in which only you can commute using the public transportation. It makes things quite smoother and easier, and we are trying to develop it. That's why we are discussing this news. It's very important for the GS paper 3 and GS paper 2. Now let us try to ponder more upon this news. So let us try to understand what is it all about. So basically East Delhi hub spans 30 hectares with the tallest residential tower in Delhi, that is of the 48-story building, right, providing around 1000 flats. That is about it. and there is a planning principle behind it, which will have the transit hub, which will have dense development integrated with the mass transit, for example metro, right. There will be pedestrian friendly space. You might be knowing that yes, there are pedestrian allocated space, but most likely you will see that it is encroached by the vehicles or by the other things, right. It should not be, right. Then there will be dense mixed use, for example there will be residential thing, there will be official space there will be green spaces like park there will be in very close proximity to such centers, right. And there will be green and smart features, park and other amenities will be there, so that people can live life easily, that is the purpose, right. And what is the policy context of it? So it follows the national TOD policy of 2070s. So basically it is all based on the TOD policy of 2070, which seeks transformative, accessible and inclusive planning, urban planning, right. That is the basic thing behind it. Now what is the mixed opportunity? A, basically what we have done, we have tried to develop TOD, but the houses, the flats which is being offered by the government cost heavily. It costs more than 1.5 crore per flat, which is very costly for affordability, and affordability is very big issue. Second is there is a lack of studio apartment for the youth. For example, if you are a student, you might be having this thing that there is a lack of rented accommodation, right. If you are having the studio apartment, which is very basically compact one, you will prefer studio apartment rather than living in very small houses. So if government is catering this thing, they should develop the studio apartment for the youths, right. Accordingly it can be offered to them, so that there is a less hassle in their life as well. And there is a lack of community space, because of again Delhi is having very crunching space in it, that is why these issues persist, right. Now what is the strategic implication of TOD? So basically it will lead to the urban mobility transformation. It is basically believed that if it is implemented in a smoother manner, ultimately it will help into the better mobility into the better and greener mobility into the city, right. Also I have already said, if there is a basically a metro project passed in an area, you will see there is a rise in the real estate prices, and housing prices also rises, which is good and bad, both the things, but generally it is good for the basically those who want to sell their property out, right. And it will also bring in socio-economic equality, plus it will basically influence urban policy in the country, and if it is implemented in a better manner, it can be basically copycatted, and it can basically lead into the one of the role model for the rest of the India for the better mobility. So based on all this information, let us try to solve this question which is shown in the screen. Hope you will be able to solve it. Next news is on India Maritime Week 2025. So very important and very interesting news as well. What is happening? So India Maritime Week is being celebrated, which is a 5-day government-led global platform. It was held in Mumbai from the 26th of this month, right, which showcases India's maritime capabilities, catalyzes investment and advanced policy collaboration under the theme Uniting Oceans, One Maritime Vision, right. This is the news all about. And Modi ji also spoke in this news. It was inaugurated by our Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah ji, and Modi ji basically gave the valedictory session of this thing, right. That is why we are discussing it. This is related to GS paper 2 and GS paper 3. Now what is the background of this thing, entire news? So it is held by the Minister of Port, Shipping and Waterways, right, and other ministries are also involved, but nodal ministry is Ministry of Shipping and Port. Basically it is a forum that align with the Maritime India Vision 2030 and Maritime Amrit Kal Vision 2047, right. Now let us try to understand why we are focusing more on India's maritime basically strength. So it was historically considered that India is a sea blind country. You might if you are studying the history, you might be knowing, after Cholas, we for the larger period of time you become quite sea blind country, and in recent past we have realized this might of our maritime border, right. That is why we are focusing on our maritime borders as well, right, because using the maritime borders we can basically effectively reduce the cost, because it was more cheaper than the airports, right. By the if you are traveling by the ships, or we are using the cargo used by the big ships in the sea, it is cheaper. That is why we should be catalyzing, and given our location and given our strategic location, we can basically cater this thing for our better development of the India, right. So, what is the India's maritime strength? So, we have more than 11,000 kilometer of the coastline. Earlier it used to be 7,500, it is updated now, right. And we are having 13 coastal states, very important, right, and 23.7 lakh kilometer exclusive economic zone. So, EEZ, which is also beyond 12 nautical mile, we have a huge exclusive economic zone, right, around our maritime borders, right, which makes India as a very natural maritime power. We are very natural, we do not have to put the efforts, we do not have to artificial one, we have a large maritime boundary, right, and we can enjoy this thing, right. As well as India's 60% GDP comes from the coastal states. 13 coastal states provides 60% of the impetus to the Indian basically economy, which can be further used for the development of the India or these coastal states, right, supporting at least 800 million livelihood, including the livelihood of the fishermen, right. And India's maritime sector handles 95% of the country's trade by volume and 75 by its value. 90% of the trade is being done by the sea, because for the obvious reasons, very basically cost effective mode of the basically communication. That is why we should be catalyzing it. Now, that is why we are basically organizing such kind of the forums, talks, basically seminars, in which we can pitch ourselves as a country having the potential and the intention to become the maritime superpower, right. That is why these kind of the basically weeks are celebrated and organized by the different ministry. So, IMW is basically a flagship Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Industry का एक बहुत बड़ा एक basically event है, right, attended by more than 10,000 participants, and different countries ambassador attended it, different CEOs attended it. It's very important, right. And the program integrates minister plenaries, maritime leader conclave, global maritime CEO forum and all, right. So, basically कहीं ना कहीं we are trying to push ourselves as a maritime superpower. Accordingly, Sagar Manthan, which was a brainstorming session, was also organized, right. Why it matters? So, IMW is a position to translate national maritime vision into bankable project. So, we have vision, now we will have to materialize this vision. That is why we are doing all these things. Accelerate port modernization. We have the ports, right, major ports and the minor ports, right, but these ports are not modern per se, right. We will have to modernize, and we will have to make it sure we will have the multimodal logistic, means there can be interchangeability in terms of the use of the transport, from the ships to the basically inland to the ships, right. And blue economy growth. Blue economy means basically sea based economy जो होती है इसको blue economy बोलेंगे in simple terms, right. Emphasized under Maritime India Vision 2030 and Amrit Kal Vision 2047, right. उसके बाद the event focuses on decarbonization, digitalization and human capital, improvement of the human capital in India, right. And by concentrating policy, industry and multilateral dialogues, IMV enhances India's role in setting norms on green corridor, port automation and inland waterway development. That is why it is very important. Now, what are the key insights from this vision? Scale and participation. Participation of large number of the participants showcases the basically potential of this sector, and there is strategic track and institutional alignment. That is why it has become quite important, right. Now, what are the major initiatives taken during this conclave? So, basically there is a green and digital sea corridor being made between India and Netherlands, right. Second is the corridor diplomacy and outreach. So, basically we have hosted ambassadors conclave, in which we tried to push ourselves for the cross border projects, right. This is very important. E-Samudra platform for innovation push, and phase 1 of E-Samudra platform intends to unify 60 maritime services, and there is a marathon hackathon for that as well, right. And there will be international cooperation. For example, India's 2025 green and digital corridor LOL with the Singapore will be also completed. Okay, na? That is why this is very important, because major initiative has been taken by the basically government, right. Now, what are the core policy and architect behind IMV? First is the Maritime India Vision 2030. Second is the Sagarmala, Mahasagar vision. From Sagar we have shifted to the Mahasagar, right. And there is a Maritime Amrit Kal 2047, the 100 years of India's independence, right? This we call Amrit Kal vision for the maritime. That's why so very important to understand. Now, what are the thematic pillars to watch? First is the green transition, second is the digital port creation, third is the inland water board, fourth is the shipbuilding, and fifth is the maritime tourism. These are the key pillars that we will have to work upon, we will have to watch, right? Now, what is the strategic implication for India? So, these kind of the basically seminars or workshop work as a investment magnet in which CEOs, ambassadors and other business class attend and try to understand what is the key strength, what is the key opportunities available in India, right? And accordingly they will invest into the India's, right? Then there will be standards and corridors, for example, green and digital corridor diplomacy position India to the rule of to the road and decarbonize shipping and interoperable port tech, shaping market access and the compliance trajectory. Also, there will be resilience and competitiveness aspect so that we can work upon the Mahasagar vision of India, right? Now, what are the opportunities and frictions? So, yes, we are basically capable of building the ports, digitalizes, but in the past it is known as India is very slow in terms of all these things. So, we will have to basically fasten the basically process of creating the port in India or otherwise, right, in different countries, for example, Chabhar or other ports, right. So, we will have to work on it, right. Now, we will have to, there are various friction, for example, upfront cost for the upfront cost for the port development is very huge because the infrastructure development projects, right, and they generally cost a lot. We will have to work upon it, and there is the execution risk as well. For example, we are quite poor in terms of the execution. We are good in terms of planning, but the execution lacks. So, based on all this information, I hope you will be able to solve the question which is being displayed on your monitor. Next news is on cloud seeding. So, what happened? We know that Delhi government tried to cloud seed the capital of Delhi 2 times, right, on the Tuesday as well as on the previous day. However, it was not materialized. Why? As per the government information, there was a lack of humidity in the environment as well as weather are also not conducive to induce artificial rain in India, right, in Delhi, basically capital of Delhi. And we know the Delhi during the winters are generally choked by the pollutants. There are multiple factors behind it. It can be the geographical basically location of Delhi. Aravalli plays also one of the important role, and there are like a lack of speedy winds and there are lack of precipitation, followed by like firecrackers that is being used during the Deepavali or stubble burning in the western borders of the country, right. These are the multiple factors which result into the high level of the pollution, and as of now we have like having AQI more than 330 to 400, right. It depends on the different places, which is not considered good for the humans, especially for the poor, young children and vulnerable section of the societies, right. To deal with the pollution issues, right, government decided to basically induce artificial rain, and for that purpose cloud seeding was being done, right, which basically was not successful in terms that there was a lack of the rain. However, as per the dean or as per the director of the IIT Kanpur, all the scientific objectives has been met, right. So, in future if there is a need they can repeat it because they have learned a lot during the process, and in future they can basically implement such kind of the things, right. That is the context I would like to give you. Now, what is it is important, it is overlapping with the GS paper 3, that is the environment and ecology, or also with the governance aspect if you want to take it, right. Now, let us try to first understand what is the meaning of the cloud seeding, right. So, cloud seeding is a weather modification technique. क्या है ये? Weather modification technique है that disperse tiny particle into the existing cloud to encourage precipitation such as the rain or the snow, disperse fog or suppress hail, right. It cannot create cloud or change large scale weather. मतलब ये क्लाउड क्रिएट नहीं करता, बट क्लाउड्स जो एग्जिस्टिंग रहते हैं उनको पास ले आते हैं और दे बिकम हैवी, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ द हैवीनेस precipitation occurs. It can occur in terms of the rain or whatever modes of precipitation is there, it can occur, right? So basically ये कभी नहीं होता कि वो क्लाउड बनाते हैं, क्लाउड को क्लोज लाते हैं, हैवी करते हैं वो, right? And claims of dramatic effect on the climate are not scientifically proven as of now. This is the definition of the World Meteorological Organization, right? WMO. Now basically there are two primary methods of the cloud seeding. First is the hygroscopic seeding, second is the glaciogenic seeding. How they are different? So basically hygroscopic seeding is done for warm clouds, गर्म जो होती हैं हवा या फिर क्लाउड, उनके लिए की जाती है, which releases salt particle like sodium chloride, NaCl, right, that promote droplet growth by collision and coalescence. Just try to recall a simple factor. टेबल सॉल्ट जो रखा रहता है, आप कुछ देर उसको छोड़ दीजिए तो वेटनेस सी आ जाती है उसमें. Why? Because hygroscopic in nature. They try to trap the moisture from the environment, and the similar principle is used in the cloud seeding as well. Hope it is clear too. Second is the glaciogenic. अब ठंड है, ठंड में क्या होता है, things are different, right? So glaciogenic seeding is done for the cold or super cold clouds, right, which uses ice nucleating agents like silver iodide, AgL, right? Silver iodide का use करते हैं because यहाँ पे क्या है, the cloud is cold, right, to trigger ice crystal formation leading to snowfall or the rain. वहाँ पे ठंडे को क्या करते हैं, गर्म कर देंगे, थोड़ा सा गर्म हो जाएगा तो प्रेसिपिटेशन हो जाएगा, एक गर्म को ठंडा, ठंडा को गर्म, ऐसा कुछ करके आप सोच सकते हैं. Now at least 50 countries deploy operational cloud seeding program emphasizing the need for the robust scientific evaluation due to natural weather variability. At times, like there are countries which are already using these kind of the techniques, including the countries like Saudi, they are using it frequently, right? So this is the basic concept that you should be knowing. That's why we try to discuss it. Now, what are the various steps of the cloud seeding? So how cloud seeding works? Let us try to understand in simple words. तो होते हैं बेसिकली इसके 5 स्टेप होते हैं, जैसे पंच तत्व होता है वैसे 5 स्टेप होते हैं क्लाउड सीडिंग के. पहला स्टेप क्या होता है, ए, पहला होता है आइडेंटिफिकेशन. पहले पता तो करें कि किस टाइप का क्लाउड है, राइट. फर्स्ट इज द आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ एप्रोप्रिएट क्लाउड विद सफिशिएंट मॉइस्चर एंड वर्टिकल डेवलपमेंट, राइट. सो दिल्ली में क्या इशू हुआ, मॉइस्चर वाज नॉट सफिशिएंट, ओनली 15 to 20% मॉइस्चर वाज देयर, एज वेल एज क्लाउड्स आर एट वेरी हाई, बेसिकली वर्टिकल हाइट जो हाइट है उसकी बहुत ज़्यादा है, इसलिए इट वाज नॉट सक्सेसफुल. एंड विदाउट सुटेबल क्लाउड सीडिंग कैन नॉट वर्क. आई बिलीव दिस इज द बेसिक रीजन बिहाइंड कि हाउ वाई दिल्ली में उतना एक्सपेक्टेड आउटकम क्यों नहीं आया. नाउ व्हाट इज द सेकेंड स्टेप, चूज द सीडिंग एजेंट एंड मेथड बेस्ड ऑन द क्लाउड टाइप. सॉल्ट फॉर द वार्म क्लाउड, सिल्वर आयोडाइड फॉर द सुपर कोल्ड. वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इट. What is the step 3? Deliver particle via aircraft mounted flares. In case you are interested, you might have seen the video of aircrafts basically launching the flares. This is used by most of the cases. Or less commonly agents are like ground generators or the rockets or the drones. But generally we use the aircraft. Cessna aircraft was used by the IIT Kanpur to seed the cloud in Delhi, right? What is the step 4? So we'll have to monitor change in the clouds and precipitation using radar, aircraft instruments and ground gauzes and satellites, right. Try to recall Balakot strike and why we are not able to basically procure the pictures because of this clouds only, right. So radars are generally used to monitor the formation of the cloud. Accordingly we can basically predict if there will be rain or not. There are multiple factors behind it, but one of the monitoring method is to use the radar and all, right. What is the step 5? Evaluate scientifically with the randomized seeded versus unseeded events, comparison supported by the physical analysis to determine actual impact following best practices from WMO. तो फाइनली आपको देखना होता है कि आपने जो सीडिंग की थी और जहाँ पे सीडिंग नहीं हुई थी, दोनों में फ़र्क क्या है. क्या बारिश हुई सीडिंग वाले एरिया में? यस हुई तो इट इज़ इफेक्टिव. इफ नहीं हुई तो इफेक्टिव नहीं है. सिंपल मैथड, राइट. नाउ मैथड विच वाज यूज्ड, वी हैव सीन द एयरक्राफ्ट सीडिंग, and if you have seen the picture you might have seen it, right. Flares being used, right. And there are basically ground based system which can also be used, right, but most effective is the aircraft seeding, right. And there are various sensing technologies as well. C-band basically polarimeter radars are there, aircraft microphysical probes are there, they also do it, but most effective is the, and the cost effective as well otherwise is the basically aircraft seeding. Cessna aircraft was used again. Now what are the evidences from global program? So WMO reports that most reliable evidence for winter glaciogenic seeding in mountainous region with uncertain result for warm cloud and कन्वेक्टिव सिस्टम, जो ठंडे मौसम में ज़्यादा अच्छा करता है रादर देन द गर्म, और दिल्ली का वॉज द मोर हॉटर क्लाइमेट, राइट, दैट्स वाई इट वॉज नॉट दैट इफेक्टिव. Also, there are various reports that demonstrate that clear casual snowfall generation from silver iodide seeding align with the aircraft flight paths. Means it works. UAE uses frequent hygroscopic seeding mission guided by radar and AI. जैसे हमने किया था, right? Over 50 countries conduct and cloud seeding operation targeting enhanced precipitation, fog dispersal, hail suppression in phasing, radius development. So that was basically best practices from the world. Now let us try to understand Delhi mein kya, what happened in Delhi, right? So basically in Delhi it is IIT Kanpur which was basically leading agency for the basically cloud seeding in any, and it did the trial as well using silver iodide and salt flare. दोनों हमने use किया था, it was mix of both, right? Over targeted areas but failed to induce measurable rainfall. हुआ था rainfall, बहुत ही कम मात्रा में हुआ था because of the insufficient moisture 10 to 15% and high cloud was more than 10,000 feet पे हाइट थी, तो दोनों कारण से नहीं हुआ, मॉइस्चर भी कम था और हाइट भी ज़्यादा थे. Two sorties covered areas like Burari, Mayur Vihar, in our area that is the Karol Vihar, Bagh and Noida, right? And monitoring show that marginal 6 to 10% reduction in particulate matter 2.5 and 10, जो अच्छी बात है, मतलब they have basically seen this, there is a reduction in PM particle. Again, there is no direct or indirect correlation that because of the cloud seeding it happened, but yes, there is a reduction. So it is good, right? And it cost like 1 crore for us, right? So again, it was not that successful. So we should be basically looking for the what are the challenges and what should be the future consideration. So first, cloud seeding efficiency is strongly weather dependent. ऐसा नहीं हो कि आप you can induce it in any weather. We have to weather dependent as well, right? Adequate moisture is also needed. Suitable cloud type is needed, and timing is very important, right? Second is overseeding risks generate excessive small droplet. Overseeding भी नहीं होनी चाहिए. Environmental impact of the silver iodide, it is very important to understand. Generally it is considered not that harmful, but again we will have to further scientifically do the study in order to relate if it is useful or not, if it is having any negative impact or not. After all, silver iodide or other such chemicals are chemicals, right? They are not natural droplets, so they will have some kind of the impact at least on the plant or microbiology or microclimatic conditions. So we will have to be very watchful. We should be using it in extreme conditions only, not at our wish and will, right? And there need to be evaluation and scientific study for all these kind of the practices. Now, based on the information that we have discussed, let us try to solve the question which is shown on the screen. Hope you will be able to solve it. So next news is based on editorial which was written by one of the police officer, Mr. Vij. So what happened, he is basically discussing about the constitutional draft bill 113 amendment, right, which was introduced recently, and he is trying to discuss the various aspect of it. It is his views, plus we are trying to incorporate our views as well in order to make it suitable for your answer, and we will try to discuss what are the various aspect of it. Now I will try to give you a context of it. So you might be knowing that Kejriwal ji, who was the former chief minister of Delhi, was arrested, and his basically key aides also has been arrested in various so called allegations, liquor scam and other scams are there, right? And they were for a considerable period of time they were under the jail. It was considered that it is very unconstitutional as well as basically not moral for a person who is in the jail to basically conduct the businesses of the office, very critical for the overall admission. There is the CM's office or health ministry's office, right? So that's why this bill was introduced by the central government in order to curb such practices. So this bill which is basically in draft form, right, this is only a bill, it is under consideration by joint parliamentary committee. So it tried to basically impose certain kind of restriction that we will try to understand, and we will try to basically discuss what is the aspect of the bill which is contentious, what are the way forward on it, and what should be the ideal situation. Now let us try to understand. So basically the Constitution 113 Amendment Bill 2025 seeks to mandate removal of union, state and Delhi ministers including the PM, CM, if they remain under arrest or in custody for more than 30 consecutive days. 30 दिन तक लगातार कोई जेल में है, if it is a CM or PM or any minister of the Delhi, other state or union territory of Delhi or other states as well. So they can be automatically removed or will have to leave the post, right? That is the bill all about. For an offence punishable with at least 5 year imprisonment, जिसमें 5 साल की सजा भी होनी चाहिए, right? And it has triggered debate about the arrest linked disqualification, bail jurisprudence and scope for misuse by enforcement agencies and government. But the key concern says that government of the day can basically misuse the provision to suppress or muzzle the opposition using the agencies. Frivolous ground पे भी कुछ केस हो सकता है जिसमें punishment basically can be more than 5 years, and accordingly if someone is arrested under these laws, a person will naturally become the disqualified to hold office, which is again matter of the concern, because against the politicians such kind of the cases are very frequent, very regular. So if government of the day wants, they can disqualify any and every person, right? That is the key concern, and it will lie in the polity and the governance section of the syllabus. Now what the bill proposes? So it intends to amend Article 75, which is related to the Prime Minister of India, Article 164, which is related to the Chief Minister of the state, and Article 239 AA, which pertains to the CM of Delhi, right? To require the President or Governor to remove a minister on the advice of the PM/CM by 31st day of continuous custody. For qualifying offence, following such advice, the minister automatically ceases to hold office from the next day, right? So दो option है, either you vacate the office automatically or you will be removed, right? दोनों option लागू होता है as per this proposal, right? And is applicable for the union, for the state and union territory of Delhi, and applies the same rule to the Prime Minister and Chief Minister who must resign by the 31st day or automatically. So Prime Minister is basically headed, Prime Minister, Central Council of Ministers is headed by the Prime Minister at the center, and the State Council of Ministers is headed by the CM. So both CM or the PM or the ministers at the union level or the state level can be removed if this bill is passed by the union parliament, right? The stated object is to uphold constitutional morality and to restore public trust that ministers under serious allegation should not continue in executive office during the prolonged custody. अब इनका कहना है, if someone is basically arrested in PMLA and UAPA or other such charges, so naturally they basically lose the confidence of the constitution as well as the public, and hence they should be behind the bars and they should basically vacate the office, because to rule from the jail, it is not an ideal situation for a democracy. That is the bill all about, right? Now we have studied this keyword, it is against the constitutional morality. Let us try to understand what is the meaning of the word constitutional morality. So in constitution there are articles which clearly mention if something will happen, what will be the result of it or consequence of it. But at times few things are not written, but we should follow it, right? And the things which is not written in the constitution, but it is basically based on the moral principles or the ethics of the society, we know it as a constitutional morality. And the bill is saying the CM or the minister should resign because it is violative of this basically spirit of the constitutional morality. Now let us ponder more upon what is constitutional morality. This is a fundamental concept that refers to the adherence to the core principle and values enshrined in the constitution, guiding the action of the both government and individual. And it goes beyond literal text. जो text में नहीं लिखा हुआ है literally उसके beyond भी जाता है, इसलिए constitutional morality and encompasses the spirit, ethos and basic ideals like justice, liberty, equality, secularism, etc., right? And demands that governance and societal conduct align with these constitutional values. That's why this bill says that we should not be going beyond this constitutional morality. What are the various cases related to this interpretation of this word constitutional morality? Yes, there are cases. Keshwanandan Bharti versus State of the Kerala 1973, in which basically this basic structure doctrine was introduced, which was based on again constitutional morality. Again, second is the Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India, Article 37, Section 377 IPC, we famously know in it, in which we have used this word constitutional morality. Then there is the Indian Young Lawyers versus Association or the state of Kerala, basically Sabrimala case, JSI Deepak, try to recall. And finally is the Justice K. S. Puttuswamy, right to privacy. In all these cases, we have frequently used this word, that is constitutional morality. So, these cases I hope you will be able to recall. This was just for a reference. Now, why there is a need for such kind of the bill as of now? So, I have given you context. Delhi, erstwhile Delhi CM and other CMs or the ministers were behind the wall, but still they were basically not willing to vacate their office, right? कौन छोड़ना चाहता है पद and पदवी, कोई नहीं छोड़ना चाहता. The same case was with the erstwhile CMs. It is the allegation of the current government, right? And the government argues that there is no explicit constitutional mechanism to remove a minister. Means minister basically if you talk about the Union Council of Minister, they have various kind of the responsibility as well as the accountability. Their individual responsibility lies with whom? President, because President appoints the minister on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. However, in fact, their basically loyalty or responsibility lies with the Prime Minister of India, right? Because they are quite close-eyed. As well as Central Council of Minister, which is also part of executive, is responsible for the Parliament in general or Lok Sabha in particular, if you are talking about the Central Council of Minister. However, removal process is not explicitly defined. It can be the minister can be removed by the recommendation of the Prime Minister or by the President, but there is no such thing like if there is a criminal charge, if they can be removed. That is why there is a need to basically fill this vacuum. That is why this bill was introduced, right? The bill was introduced and sent to the joint parliamentary committee. So JPC के पास है अभी. They are discussing further on the various aspect of this bill, right? Now, what are the key contentious issue related to this bill? So first is the arrest versus conviction. So basically removal is triggered by custody following by an arrest on allegation of offense. Allegation है and arrest कर लिया गया है, and arrest if there is more than 30 days, the person can be removed. Now you know how the police functions, how overloaded police is. So in general circumstances 30 दिन तो normal हो जाता है. We have seen in petty cases people are spending in the custody, judicial or police custody more than 70 years. यहाँ तो बस 30 days का है. तो deliberately the time can be delayed by the police. It is the allegation of the opponents, right? I am not saying anything from my side. It is the allegation and analysis of the experts as well, right? Without any requirement for framing or charge or conviction, raising concern about the presumption of innocence. Generally considered क्या आता है? Innocent until proven guilty. यहाँ तो charges are not established, still you are behind the jails. So it will again, it is against the presumption, judicial basically mind के against भी है ये. Then bail jurisprudence mismatch. India's court reiterated that bail is the rule and jail is the exception. It's very key word. Always there is a rule for the bail and jail should be given in only exceptional cases, right? And that police must comply with the section 41 and 41A of CRPC, which is now BNS, right? Before arrest, which may be undercut if mere custody becomes the constitutional trigger for removal. Again the same logic. Now there is a potential for misuse. We have discussed how there is basically fear that opponent can be muzzled using such kind of the arrest and detention, right? And which can basically jeopardize our democratic credential itself, right? That is why these are the contentions, right? Now arrest and bail, what the Supreme Court had said previously. So the different judicial pronouncement which deals with arrest and the bails. Let us try to understand it. First is the Arnesh Kumar versus State of Bihar, in which the court mandated that arrest is not automatic and police must justify necessary under section 41 of the CRPC, issue 41A notice for offence up to 7 years, right? Second is the Joginder Kumar versus State of UP, in which Supreme Court held that arrest must be justified beyond the mere extension of the power, given grave reputation and liberty harms from the custodial detention. And the case of Satinder Kumar Antil versus CBI laid that a graded category-wise approach to a bail instead of strict compliance with the section 41/41A, right? So there are different interpretation of the bail and the jail, right? Now, what is important is the procedure and the timeline. We have to understand. So let us try to understand. So if the custody reach 30 consecutive days, लगातार 30 दिन तक कोई arrest हुआ है, which may flow through police or judicial remand under the code with difficult bail available after 90 or 60 days, depending on the offence, which interact avocately with the automatic removal trigger at day 31, right. Also, section 41A notices practical and judicial scrutiny of arrest often avert unnecessary custody for offences for 7 years, but special tests like NDPS, PMLA and UAPA embed stringent bail bars that can prolong detention despite weakly early stage evidences. So, multiple basically ministers of erstwhile Delhi government has been arrested under PMLA, which is very stringent, right. So, naturally the custody will go beyond 30 days and anyone can be imposed if imposed on the frivolous ground or for the other purposes. So, they will have to lose their ministry, right. It is very concerning as well, right. So, now what are the ambiguities flagged by the commentators? So, first is the scope of the custody, whether home / institutional medical custody, protective custody or transit remand cumulated toward 30 day requires clear drafting. क्या होना चाहिए, मेडिकल कस्टडी भी हो सकता है, प्रोटेक्टिव कस्टडी भी हो सकता है, कंसेक्यूटिव हो सकता है, तो यू हैव टू डिफाइन द कीवर्ड्स, राइट. Then there need to be equity and basic structure concerns, because critics argue that bill creates differential treatment for ministers versus other legislators. उन्होंने कहा कि ministers को अलग से treat क्यों किया जाए, ministers are also legislators, they should be treated at par with the other legislators. Only because they are ministers, they cannot be treated differentially. That is the argument, there is a counter argument. And there is a need of reappointment after release. Now, allowing immediate re-entry post release could reduce the deterrent effect while still enabling episodic periodical dissipation. For example, कोई 30 consecutive day तक कोई arrest रहा and he lost the ministry, and the next 31st day or 32nd day he was released, and if he is again joining the ministry without any consequences, it is of no use. It will be only a political gimmickry kind of the thing. That is the key concerns as argued by the commentators or the political experts, right. Now, what are the competing policy models? For example, there are arrest linked triggers, right. So, priority executive probity and public trust by ensuring ministers do not govern while in prolonged custody, but risk weaponization through arrest decision and bail frictions. Second is the charge framing trigger, defers removal until a court has taken cognizance and framed charges, reducing misuse risk but permitting accused ministry to continue despite serious allegation for the longer, right. And third is the conviction linked trigger. तीन trigger होते हैं generally, arrest, charge and conviction. Highest due process protection but least responsible to the governance and perception risk during pendency as trial is complex and are protected. So, basically arrest के time में हो सकता है, during the trial हो सकता है, after the trial हो सकता है. So, there are three triggers we should be discussing. Now, what are the strategic implication of this bill and what are the concerns as well. So, there is a debate between executive stability and accountability. The bill could improve optics of integrity, but may also enable mid-term executive churn if arrests coincide with the political cycles and stringent bail regime. तो उनको मानना चाहिए मिनिस्टर्स, उनको आप ज़्यादा प्रेशराइज कर देंगे तो इट विल नॉट फंक्शन. आप हर एक बार अरेस्ट कर लेंगे तो अल्टीमेटली दे विल हैव टू, देयर विल बी डिस्टेबिलिटी एंड chaos in the government of the day. Now, it will also increase federal friction because union government can use these kind of the weapon to basically muzzle the opposition at the state level. This is the apprehension. And there need to be administrative continuity. Automatic cessation on day 31st necessitate robust succession planning, cabinet reshuffling and continuity framework to prevent policy paralysis. This is the argument given by the basically writer. Now, what are the executive takeaway or what is the basically summary, what is the conclusion of it? Let us try to summarize it. First, the bill's core design, that is arrest and custody for 30 days as a constitutional ground for ministerial removal, prioritizes probity, but sits unnecessary with established arrest and bail jurisprudence that discourages routine custodial detention. Very good. Second is the absent tight procedural guardrails. Arrest based trigger could incentivize strategic use of stringent bail statutes and pre-trial custody to produce political outcome, inviting constitutional and federal pushback. And a calibrated alternative trying to removal to judicial milestone coupled with non-discretionary arrest safeguards and time-bound bail scrutiny may better balance integrity due to due process and executive stability. That is the way forward, and you can use all kind of the words in your answer in order to make the answer more effective and balanced. So, that was all on the topic, the new bill that is proposed, which have long implications on our democracy, federal structure and otherwise. Now, based on the above information, let us try to solve the question which is shown in the screen. Question says, the Constitution 113 Amendment Bill to 2025 proposes removal of union and state ministers, including prime ministers and chief ministers, if arrested and held in custody for 30 days on serious charges. Now, critically analyze the constitutional, legal and policy challenges posed by this bill. We have discussed in the topic. Discuss its potential impact on governance, rule of law and federalism in India. So, let us try to solve this question. You can write your answer and can come for evaluation. That is all.